Hey guys, what's going on? I hate to say it, but this is my second time around on this. I'll try to be brief this time. My camera died when I attempted this before. This is my 2012 Halloween watch list. Of course, you've heard this before. We're late enough in the 31 days now that this is probably more than likely not the first video you've seen, but if you haven't, definitely check out the ones before. I am showing my countdown watch list, and today's movie we're going to be talking about is a favorite of my childhood. To me, it doesn't hold up very well if you're not a fan of cheesy 80s movies or early 80s horror anthology that you've never seen before, then you're probably not going to enjoy this. If it's something you saw back then, you haven't seen it since then, it's probably going to be a nice surprise. If this is your first viewing, it doesn't hold up very well. The movie I'm talking about is 1983's Nightmares. This is probably something you're not going to be able to find on DVD without spending like 50 or 100 bucks. On VHS, I picked this up for about 10 bucks a couple years ago, which I thought was a good deal. This movie here is a movie that is broken up into 4 stories. They're just called chapters. There's no actual wraparound, and the chapters are just black title card screens that just say the name of the story, which is kind of odd. I don't know of very many movies that have done this, since back then. Usually the wraparound is a popular way to do it. But I saw this a lot when I was a kid, and it made a very big impression on me. I probably saw this 20 or 30 times on HBO when I was a kid, and then it just kind of disappeared. And then since then, it's become so hard to find that I get really nostalgic for it. The first story we're going to talk about is called Terror in Topanga, and in this first chapter, it's about a woman that she's wanting to leave the house, and her husband's telling her she shouldn't. There's a lot of stuff on the news about a murder in their area, and somebody was attacked. The lady, she wants to go get cigarettes, and the husband points out that, she needs to quit anyway, and a lot of things like that. It kind of ends up being a sort of cliche story. It's something that if you'd have saw it back then, you probably hadn't seen very many things with this kind of story yet, but since then, it's happened a lot. It pays a lot of dues to things like urban mythology. Like if you've studied urban legends, this story is kind of textbook to some of the ones that are out there. Don't want to give anything away, but that's kind of a sort of slasher. The next one we're going to talk about is The Battle of Bishop. This is the one that I enjoyed the most, stands out the most to me in my memory, and it had Emilio Estevez in it. And Emilio Estevez played this kid that he was really big into arcade games, and he would hang out the arcade, and he would hustle people for money. And it's just got a very early 80s feel to it. And I think Emilio Estevez is part of that too, because I, get that kind of vibe out of watching any movie he did back in the 80s. But what's fun about this is that the arcades themselves are just a window into the early 80s. You'll get to see, because this came out in 1983, you'll get to see a lot of early games that don't really get any attention anymore. They kind of disappeared. They got overshadowed by bigger popular games over the years. There's lots of fun stuff to look at. This has got a lot of background scenery to see. And in this favorite game, he's trying to reach the 13th level, which his friends point out, it can't be done. Nobody's ever done it before. Don't even try. It doesn't exist. And he just can't stand it. He wants to beat it. Well, after getting on a run, and it looks like he might make it to that level, the owner of this arcade pulls the plug on him for closing time and really upsets Emilio Estevez's character. So what he ends up doing is he sneaks back and gets in the building after hours and decides to play it again. Well, of course, you can guess that something goes wrong, and he ends up facing this arcade a little bit more personally than playing the game. I'll just say that. It's got a nice little 80s sci-fi kind of feel to it. I really enjoy it, and that's probably my favorite story of the 4. The next story we'll talk about, The Benediction. The Benediction stars Lance Henriksen, and this one is also pretty memorable. I used to think this was kind of scary when I was a kid. It's about a guy, and he's a priest, and he's out in the desert, and he's at this church, and he's kind of losing his faith. He keeps seeing all these signs that the world is evil, and these bad things are happening, and he's just losing his faith. Well, when he ends up leaving the church and setting out on the road, he ends up coming into contact with this big black truck over and over again. And this big black truck is kind of a personification of, something. And I'll just say that it's very reminiscent of other movies, but at this time when this came out, I hadn't seen those movies yet. Since then, it's very cliche, but it's still fun. It's nice to see Lance Henriksen, at kind of an early, young age. That's the third story, The Benediction. The fourth story is probably the cheesiest. It's probably the one that holds up the least, but it's semi-fun, and it's called Night of the Rat. So you can kind of get a good idea of what we're talking about just from the title. It is about a family, and the family is made up of, the mom is played by Veronica Cartwright, which you would know by her. She was in Alien. The dad is Richard Masur. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he is somebody you might recognize. He was the father on License to Drive. And then the daughter is played by Bridget Anderson, and she was the one that played Savannah in Savannah Smiles. Unfortunately, she was a young adult, a child actor who died very young. I think she died when she was like 20, so it's always sad for me to watch this, knowing that she had such a promising career. I always liked her as a kid actor. The story is very cliche, but it's about a father who's kind of overworked, and he's so focused on everything that he is not really around as a father. And the mother, she's kind of looking to try to do things, and the father thinks that everything she's thinking is a bad idea. One of the ideas that she's having is calling an exterminator because they think they have rats in the walls and in the ceiling, and it's this big confrontation where the father thinks it's a big scam to call an exterminator because exterminator's just going to overcharge you and do something that you could do for yourself for just a couple of bucks, which is set some traps and be done. Well, needless to say, this goes on and has a little twist in it. It's a very odd twist. The special effects are very questionable on this one, but it's still fun. It's cheesy 80s fun. I'd say set your expectations at medium. If you are not a fan of this, I will give you an alternate to try. We won't talk about this in particular, but it's another fun one that I really enjoy. If you have any thoughts about this movie, definitely leave me a comment down below, which is Trilogy of Terror. The most famous part about this is the one that you'll see here, which is the, I think they call this Sunni fetish doll. And this is another classic anthology type movie that I saw when I was very young, and it has frightened me, but it doesn't really hold up that well, but it is still fun. It's a classic. Karen Black is in this, and she is all throughout the movie, even though she plays different characters, which I always thought was interesting. So that's just a little bonus tidbit for you guys there that, if for some reason you don't like nightmares, then definitely don't spend 50 or $100 on this unless you're a humongous fan, because that price is way too high considering this is just a cheesy fun movie. Try maybe looking it up on YouTube. You can imagine something with the name Nightmares, generic name like that. It may be hard to find, but I usually paired the name Nightmares with 1983. You at least should be able to find a trailer and just give that a shot and see what you think. But yeah, today's choice was Nightmares from 1983, a favorite from my childhood. Now we'll switch over to my bonus section. Today in my bonus section, I wanted to say that my buddy Owen Neal did a video not very long ago where he pointed out that he found the candy corn Oreos and they were at Big Lots. So I'm still not for sure if that was a Target exclusive because, of course, Big Lots ends up getting things that kind of fail to sell before a certain date at other stores. So I still don't know how to get any candy corn Oreos. But what I did is I went to Big Lots hoping that maybe if I couldn't find them at Target or the local grocery store, Walmart, anything like that, maybe they'd be at Big Lots. I was not successful. But Owen Neal did also point out that he found a lot of great horror movies. Well, this was actually the best part, and this is what my bonus section will be about. I actually found a whole bag of movies here. They were on sale for, I think, $2.48. They had little signs up everywhere. It said Halloween DVDs on sale at participating stores. As if you would put up that sign if the store you were in is not a participating store. I don't really get that, but they were $2.48, and I had a 20% off coupon, which basically made these movies $2 a piece, which is a great deal. I picked up a lot of movies I normally wouldn't pick up. I also picked up some snacks, but let's go through the movies I got. I'll be brief. Most of these movies are ones that I've either seen and it's been a long time, or I've never seen and they're blind buys. First one I got is one that Owen Neal got also, and I just thought it sounded interesting, which is called Chain Letter. It kind of sounds like it's sort of like The Ring or something like that, but with a chain letter instead of a VHS tape. Next one is Pathology. So maybe I caught part of it on cable a couple years ago. It was definitely a little gorier and a little creepier than I expected it to be. It's got Alyssa Milano in it. I know you guys may not dig her, but I always kind of like Alyssa Milano. The next one is one that I'm very excited about, and it's called The Legacy. I don't think I've ever seen this, but this picture right here used to be the main picture on the VHS tape, and I remember seeing it all the time at the video store when I was a kid. So now that I have this, I've been wanting to watch it for a long time, and I have no excuses now, $2. So the next one is one that has been recommended to me several times. I don't know if it's that great or whatever, but it looks halfway decent, and that's called The Prey, about a killer lion, I believe. The next movie is one that I have seen. I rented it back when it very first came out, and that is Black Xmas. This is the remake of Black Christmas. It's sometimes called Black Christmas also, but the title, of course, says Black Xmas. It stars Michelle Trachtenberg, which I like okay. I mean, I know some people don't like her, but I always liked her on Buffy. I remember this movie just being so-so, but at the same time, it's been so long since I've seen it now, I don't have much of a memory about it, so for $2, I'm going to give it another shot. The next movie I picked up is The Reef. I honestly don't remember if I've seen this or not. At first, I thought I had, and then I think I am actually thinking of Open Water. So if it's not The Reef that I saw, I know I saw Open Waters, and maybe I haven't seen this at all. So I'm sure it's probably worth a watch for a couple of bucks. The next one I picked up, and it's a little unpackaged here, but that is The Believers. This was made by one of the directors from Blair Witch Project, which I usually pick up a lot of the random stuff that says that. I thought Blair Witch Project was a good movie. I think it was really well made, especially for the budget. So anything else that they do, I'm going to just check out. The next one I saw at the theaters. I've seen a couple times since then, and that is Species. This is like a 2-disc special collector's edition or whatever. I know this has some questionable CGI in it. I remember thinking it was questionable even way back when I saw it at the theaters in the 90s. But if you're a fan of H.R. Giger and his design that he did for Alien, he also designed the Alien for this. I think this has 2 or 3 sequels also. I think the first one's probably the best. I remember seeing Species 2 and 3 and just thinking they were kind of meh, but I think this one's okay. I just haven't seen it in a while, so probably for $2 it'll be worth it. The next one I picked up was Dario Argento's Mother of Tears. I haven't seen this before. It's been recommended to me several times too. This is one of his newer movies. Argento is mostly known for the stuff he did in the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. This is something that I thought I probably would want to watch anyway, so for $2 that's a great deal. The next movie I got is Amityville Horror, the original classic. I haven't seen this in a long time, and it's just one of those movies where, you know, for $2 I'd like to see it again. I didn't have it in my collection, so I'm glad I have it now. The next one is Ginger Snaps 2. I actually have seen, I think there's 3 Ginger Snap movies, and I used to have all 3 of them. I think the first one's probably the best, and they just kind of trail off after that. I liked them. I like all 3 of them. They're done with practical effects at least, but this one may not be the best one, but for a couple of bucks I'd like to watch it again, and maybe I can track down the original Ginger Snaps too. The next one I got, I'm really bad about buying movies based on the women that are in it. It's horrible, but I'm a big fan of Eliza Dushku, so I got The Alphabet Killer. I don't think that this is necessarily very great. I hadn't even heard anything good or bad about it at all, other than it's just kind of everywhere, very cheap. But I love Eliza Dushku. I think she's great. I've always been a fan of her, probably as far back as like the late 90s when she was very first on Buffy. But I've really become a bigger fan of her over the last year or two, you know, getting to meet her in person and things like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and support it. For a couple of bucks, I'll give it a shot. The next 2 movies I got are very interesting in their packaging. It makes me want to not open them, even though I want to see them. The first one is The Revenge of Frankenstein. And see this thing right here around the edges, this Halloween design that looks like sort of like a slipcover? That's actually in the shrink wrap. So, unfortunately, as cool as that looks, as soon as you open it, all that red's gone. It's just a regular snap case like everybody else. So, I wish that would have been done in a slipcover. I think that looks awesome. And it says down at the bottom, Horror Unleashed. It's kind of like see-through, and there's other words underneath it about the movie, so it's kind of hard to see. But yeah, Horror Unleashed. I think that's cool, but it's The Revenge of Frankenstein. I'm sure this is a Hammer production. I think it is. Yes, it is a Hammer production from, looks like, from the 1950s, 1958. And the next one I got has that similar packaging on it, and that is The Return of the Vampire. This is one of those movies that was kind of a cash-in on Bela Lugosi as Dracula. Of course, it's not really a sequel, but, you know, you get Bela Lugosi in there, and he is a vampire, and of course, everybody's going to go see it. Has that similar cool design along the outside of it. And there at the bottom, you can kind of see it better where it says Horror Unleashed because it happens to be white underneath it. I think that's really cool. So another great classic. So yes, that's what I got. I think this was roughly about 30 bucks. So not too bad considering it's a whole bunch of cheap movies. Of course, like I mentioned before, if you guys can find candy corn Oreos, I am still looking for somebody to make a video about that. I will show you guys one snack because I will save the other one. But speaking on my last time that I talked about Oreos, so this is like a bonus segment. You guys had seen me talk about making a custom triple stuff. I actually found Oreo cookies called Triple Double. There it is along the top. Triple Double. This is pretty cool, although the name is a little, you know, not quite what you expect. But when you open these up, the cookie is actually chocolate icing on top and the vanilla icing, plain icing on bottom, and it's just a cookie in the middle. So it's not really a triple, it's actually just a double stuff with another cookie layer in the middle. But gosh darn it, these are good. That chocolate center, I'm a big fan of that. If they have cookies next time at the grocery store that's just chocolate, like you get a chocolate cookie with chocolate icing in the middle, I'd buy that. I know a lot of them are actually the white wafers with the chocolate icing. I may have to try those, but I am a big fan of that chocolate icing. And my question to you is, what is your favorite type of Oreo? I didn't realize how many Oreos were out there. At Big Lots, they have creamsicle Oreos, which are orange flavored icing in the middle. They had Neapolitan, which was a cookie like this, which had strawberry. Then it had chocolate, I believe, and then it was the yellow cookies. Crazy. There are so many different types of Oreos out there, and I had no idea. It's been so long since I've sat down and actually wondered what kind of Oreos they make and eaten any. I didn't realize that there was like 10 or 15 different kinds of Oreos floating around. And if you go to your local grocery store, you'll find different ones than you do at Walmart that you'll find different at Big Lots. So let me know what's your favorite kind of Oreos, or what kind of crazy Oreos can you find that I've never seen before. All right, I'll leave it at that, and I will see you guys again tomorrow. Eat more Oreos.